Welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield. Today we're going to be talking about the AA-99 assault rifle in Starfield, which is probably one of my favorite assault rifles in the game. I kind of like the look of it. I kind of like the way that it functions when you're reloading it, and it is one of the more common weapons that you can find. It's one of the 3 weapons that fires the 11mm round. This, the tombstone, which we've already talked about, and the drumbeat, which we still need to talk about. So for the base stats of the AA-99, this one does 17 damage base because this is regularly a full auto gun. However, you can find semi-auto versions of this pretty regularly. That's not a rarity for this weapon, so kind of keep that in mind, and that will buff up the damage quite a bit. This one does fire the 11mm round, one of the more common rounds in the game. That's really nice. This one holds a 30 round magazine by default. However, this is one of the weapons that is affected by skill magazines to increase its actual magazine capacity. I know that's a little bit strange, but this one can get even more rounds in it by default, which is pretty good. 30 rounds is already pretty nice for an assault rifle. Going up to like 45 rounds is even nicer, but having 30 rounds is nice enough a lot of the time. This one has 112 rate of fire, so pretty high rate of fire, which is nice, as you would kind of expect for a full auto gun. This one has 40 meters of effective range, the same as most of the other rifles. This one has decent accuracy. It's not the most accurate, but it's not super inaccurate either. And this one does weigh 3 weight even, so a little bit heavy, but about the same as most of the other rifles. Nothing way crazy there either. For the general pros of this weapon, it does have really common ammo. It is very common to find 11mm rounds on enemies or in shops. You can also find the 11mm guns, which are always going to give you ammo too whenever you pick them up. So ammo shouldn't really be an issue with this weapon. It does do good DPS because its rate of fire is pretty high, and it's fairly easy to keep on target at close and medium range. Out to longer range, it does bounce around a little bit, at least if you're on full auto. On semi-auto, that won't be an issue though, so the damage per second is pretty consistent, and it does actually have a lot of really good mods too, which we're going to be talking about in a second. Cons to it is that it doesn't really do that much damage per shot, although none of the 11mm guns do the most damage per shot, so that's just kind of the round holding it back a little bit. But aside from that, it doesn't really have any other major cons in my opinion. And this one on my recent rifle tier list, I put into B tier, and I'd probably keep it in B tier. It's good, it's above average, but nothing insane or anything like that, so yeah, I really like it. Let's talk about a modded version where I'd put that, because the mods can change this one up a decent amount. So starting out with the barrel, I'd recommend one of 2 barrels, either the long barrel or the stabilizing barrel. The long barrel gives you the longest range and gives you increased accuracy, which is nice. It just lowers your ADS speed. The stabilizing barrel makes it so you have better accuracy and better recoil control, but it does slow you down from like ADSing. Pick whichever one of these you'd like. I went with the long barrel, but both are pretty decent. Then for a laser, I'd recommend the recon laser. This one is better than the regular laser and better than not having a laser, but if you can only put the regular laser on here, don't worry about it. That is just a nice bonus to the weapon. Then for optics, we actually have quite a few different optics that we can pick for the AA-99. And generally picking any of the scopes is going to give you a bonus because that does count towards the sniper perk. So going with the medium scope, the short scope, or the recon scope is going to get you the most amount of damage. I went with the short scope because honestly I wasn't going to be using this at super long range. I'm not going to be using it for sniping. But if you want a little bit longer range, go with the medium scope, or if you want something different, go with the recon scope. That's also really good. Then for a muzzle, you either have a muzzle brake or a suppressor on this. I would recommend that you just throw a suppressor on this because if you have the sneak perk, that gives you more damage to it. We've talked about this in basically all of the weapon lists up to this point, where if you can throw a scope and a suppressor on a weapon, you might as well because it's going to get you the most damage, unless you're going to be using this for a different option, which you may want to for this particular weapon because you can still keep it full auto. And that works perfectly fine too, but the strongest version is going to be like a semi-auto version with a scope and with a suppressor on it. For grip and stock, you can either go with the ergo grip or the stabilizing grip. I went with the ergo grip, but pick whichever one of these you like. They're just a bonus over the standard stock. It does help you more with accuracy and recoil reduction, so that's nice, although the AA-99 doesn't have too much recoil, which is good. For a magazine and battery, you actually have quite a few options, and I'd recommend one of 3 of them, either going with the armor-piercing rounds, the tactical mag, or the explosive rounds. You could also go with the small magazine with this too, at least if you're going with the skill magazines to get you more ammo overall, because that doesn't actually hurt you that much. You might just go down to a 30-round magazine that has better ADS speed and better reload speed. For the other ones though, the armor-piercing rounds are just a straight bonus to the weapon, and generally just an upgrade to any weapon. If you can throw them in there, it's going to be good. The explosive rounds sound kind of crazy with this, but they're really not. They can stagger enemies a decent amount. You can just spray this at enemies in full auto, and full auto explosive rounds is actually pretty decent. Semi-auto, the explosive rounds are okay. They're going to be doing the most amount of damage out of any round that you can have, but it's not a huge damage bonus, which is why I would say the other ones are pretty decent options too. And then the tactical magazine just makes so you have faster reloads, which is pretty good, especially if you have the skill magazines to give this an even larger magazine. For internal, we have our standard 3 options: hair trigger, high powered, or high velocity. All of these are good. I went with the hair trigger on mine to have a faster rate of fire because I was using this in semi-auto. We'll talk about that in 1 second too. The high powered is going to get you the most amount of damage per shot, so that's pretty good. And then the high velocity is going to get you the longest range. Pick whichever one of these you'd like, they're all really good. Then for a receiver, I would recommend that you go with the semi-auto. Semi-auto does substantially more damage than full auto. It also counts towards like the marksman skill, which helps out a lot, so you get even more damage on top of this. That's just going to be the most damage per shot that you can get out of this, and that's generally going to get you more damage per second than the full auto one too. Again, unless you have like certain legendary effects on there, which can maybe get up even higher. Semi-auto is going to be definitely the stronger of the 2 options though for a standard one. And once you have all of these on your gun, it does make it substantially better, but I don't think it increases its tier ranking all that much more, in my opinion. I would move it from B tier up to A tier for the modded version. It is very good, but it's still getting outcompeted by certain weapons. I would still say for the role that it kind of fits in, where it's kind of a DMR gun then, something like the Beowulf and the old Earth Hunting Rifle still kind of beat it out for that. It does have a more common round than something like the old Earth Hunting Rifle though, so that's nice. I still don't think it's going to beat the Beowulf really in any sort of way that it could. There are 2 unique versions of this, both of which I don't have footage for in the background. One of them I'm pretty sure I sold, or I put it somewhere that I don't remember, that being the Peacekeeper. You get this one from doing a side quest. This one has a long barrel on it, a laser sight, a reflex sight, and an ergo stock on it, which is pretty decent. All of those are nice mods to have on this weapon, and its unique effect is pretty good too. It makes it so it has an extended magazine, so it holds even more rounds in the gun. That's pretty good. Holding double the amount of ammo overall is really nice for the Peacekeeper. This will also stack with the books that you can read, so you can get even more ammo with it. And just having a larger magazine overall is almost always going to be a bonus for this weapon. Maybe it doesn't really need that many if you're using it in semi-auto, but if you're using it in full auto, really cool. And then the other one is called Desperation. And this one I just didn't go out of my way to get, because the way you have to get this is you have to run the Red Mile 28 additional times from the first one. You have to do 29 runs of the Red Mile back and forth to just get this one weapon. You also get a second unique weapon from this, but you get it after just completing your second run, which is called Brute Force. We talked about that with the pacifier video. That one is also pretty underwhelming because it is a pacifier with bonus mods on it, which is nice. It's just, it has the bashing legendary effect, which doesn't really help it all that much. This one, on the other hand, has a little bit more mods to it, but it still doesn't have a great effect. So for mods, this one has the ergo stock, the hair trigger, laser sight, reflex sight, small magazine, and the suppressor on it. That is a pretty decent decked out gun then. It doesn't necessarily have all the mods that I would want on it, so I'd have to switch some of them out, but it's got good enough ones on there as is. The legendary effect it has on it, and it only has one for some reason, is Cornered, which Cornered is a pretty decent effect, but it's not good enough for me to want to rerun like a mini quest 29 times. That's a slower kind of quest where I have to go through dialogue each time, wait for a setup, run down there, hit the button, run back up. That counts as one, reset the quest, do it again and again and again. And all I'm getting is like a slightly above average assault rifle. That's not really good enough, especially when I find AA-99s with effects on them all the time. And I had plenty of cornered ones just laying around when I was actually filming this video, as well as legendary ones that had all sorts of effects on there. I don't know why this one isn't a legendary gun. It really should be. If you're gonna have to go through the same quest multiple times, and it's kind of a slogging quest, the reward should definitely be worth it. It should be a legendary one with all just the best effects on there. Give it like 1-inch punch, give it lacerating, and give it like an extended mag or something like that. Just give it really crazy ones that help you out a lot. If you're not going to do that and you're just going to get a rare version of this weapon, I just don't think it's worth it to do that quest that many times. That's just my opinion on it though. Tell me if you've ran the gauntlet that many times and actually bothered getting this weapon. I don't think a whole lot of people will, even if they know about it. Unless they're just going to 100% the game, in which case, sure. Tell me your thoughts on the AA-99 in the comments below, though. It is a fun assault rifle. I do really enjoy it, but I'm curious to hear what other people think and where they'd put it in the tier list. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye, everyone.